Hey, in this episode, my friend Nick and I will talk about dealing with mental illness in relationships and forgiveness. I'm glad you're here. If you tuned in to a few episodes back where I have Kira on, where we talked about her long-distance relationship, you'll be familiar with Nick, Kira's boyfriend.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming on. Nick is a sophomore at Towson University, majoring in sports management. So he and I, we have similar experiences with being close to people with mental health issues. I was close with someone that I cared about so much. So naturally, I wanted to help them through any issue or challenges they faced. Dealing with mental illness, though, is a very personal journey. And I know that there wasn't much I could do. Being 17 and in high school and never having dealt with debilitating mental illness personally.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell me like how you felt through that experience and through like wanting to be able to help the person you were close with, but also not being able to?
Absolutely. I had a similar experience of what you just described.
Mm-hmm.
There was someone who I was close to, and she was really having a hard time. She had a number of things going on.
Yeah.
To be honest, it made me feel horrible because it was a roller coaster of emotions. Like I thought that I was really helping and making a difference all the time, and I really thought that I was making it better. I mean, in reality, I just wasn't. Like, it just wasn't what I thought it was at all. And so it was really, it was a roller coaster of emotions.
And was it because you weren't in her position? Like, have you had dealt with anything that she was going through in the past?
Luckily, I have not dealt with mental illness personally.
Mm-hmm.
So that definitely made it hard to really put myself in her shoes.
Yeah, I get that.
But I really did not understand what I was dealing with at that time, like the magnitude of it all.
So how did it make you feel when you weren't able to be the thing that helped her through mental illness or like take away her pain?
You know, I think at that time I always told myself that, you know, it's on me to make her feel better. It's on me to lift her up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's on me to fix it. And I was 17. I didn't
Exactly. Yeah.
And I put a lot of pressure. I really blamed myself for her pain at some points. That really brought me down also when it wasn't getting better, when I was doing everything I could and there wasn't really anything to show for it.
I felt the exact same. You know, I'm supposed to be this important person. I'm supposed to like, you know, make their life better. But I literally don't know what to do because I don't understand what they're going through.
We're not trained therapists.
We're not professionals. And like, that doesn't mean we care any less though. I know I tried so many things and it hurt like my ego almost because I was like,
absolutely. I think you just hit it on the head. It's a real ego hit. I mean, because we think that we can just handle everything and it's just not like that.
Forces you to grow up really quickly. I'm the kind of person that I can't really dissociate from like someone else's pain. So when like I'm around someone, I take it on because I want to know what they feel like. I want to know what's happening for them. And I don't know, it matters to me, but
it's definitely a double-edged sword.
Yeah, definitely a double-edged sword because I don't know, like, why don't they tell you about this stuff? Like, like, why aren't we taught about this stuff? And this isn't uncommon also for our age group, but it's talked about like it's so taboo.
Absolutely.
So then how the heck are we supposed to know what to do?
Like, for example, like I was an athlete in high school. I played many different sports, but basketball was my favorite. And it literally got to me. Like, I would start playing bad. Like, I just wasn't mentally all there. And it really took my head out of the game. Yeah. And it sucked because...
How's your experience with that, with other people's opinions?
Yeah, that's another big part of it is that, you know, my family and my friends just were not, you know, fans of her at all. in their opinion, they saw that she was not good for me, like that she was kind of bringing me down, that she wasn't pushing me to be better. You know, she was just kind of sucking the life out of me. That's kind of how they.
Okay.
That's
how their perspective, right?
That was their perspective,
right?
And they didn't want to support me being in that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
And it was really it was my family, it was my friend, it was really everything.
Okay, wow. I mean, that must have been like really frustrating too.
It was.
What people see is not what you experience. And for me, there were times where like my friends just didn't want to talk about the relationship anymore. Yeah, like Somya, I don't like, I'm sorry, like I just can't help you again with this. Like I can't keep talking to you about this. And it was hard because you feel so alone in it, and you're like,
weighs on you, but you're the only one that seems to see those sides.
Yeah. And I think that's the kind of thing where really in that position, like looking back, like I was the only person who could understand that for myself. Everyone's saying these things over and over. It wasn't really going to help me understand it until I really came to terms with it.
It was the same thing for me. It didn't make sense what everyone was telling me just because I didn't see that in her like they did.
Yeah. I have definitely taken a lot from what I've learned from that past relationship. I feel like I'm so much more open-minded and patient with people, and give people the benefit of the doubt that, you know, things are going on behind the scenes that you don't know about.
100%.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about like what have you taken away from that experience from high school?
You know, for me, the biggest thing is that it was a humbling experience.
Okay, yeah.
This whole experience taught me that I'm not Superman. Like I can't just fix everything. I don't have all the answers. I don't think one person does have all the answers for a situation like that. Kind of like what you just said, I took away that you can look at a person, or you can look at a relationship that from the outside, and you can just judge or assume something about it, but you really have no idea what goes on behind closed doors.
No, absolutely.
It teaches you exactly like what you just said, to give them the benefit of the doubt. You can't assume that you know that you know someone.
I've realized like, wow, it's really okay to ask for help. And it's really okay to just share and be vulnerable and be like, I can't do this and I need help. I can't take on this weight, and it is okay to say that.
So a humbling experience.
Totally humbling.
You have to kind of admit that you can't handle it all on your own. And it doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're not capable. That
you're human, and that we know we all have our strengths and we all have things that we're working on. But it's also like hard to carry something that you have no experience with.
Yeah.
For me, like I learned a lot about what different medications do. I've never dealt with any kind of debilitating mental illness or anything, thankfully. But there have been times where I'm like, I don't want to burden anyone with my problems.
Right.
This is probably what everyone deals with. You know, once you talk about it, it's a lot more manageable. How beneficial therapy is, and how great it is to just be honest with your family about what's going on with you mentally. You know, being vulnerable and like opening up about what's going on for you, it's like the nicest thing you can do for yourself.
Yep.
And you'd be surprised how many people would relate and like also totally invite that with open arms and like want to help and everything.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think more people could relate than you would. But it's that willingness to be vulnerable, and you know, in order to talk about it, like you just said. You know, you're opening yourself up, and that's something that a lot of people struggle with because they're afraid to be judged.
Okay, a little changing pace. You were with this person for a while. Like, have you carried any things away from that relationship that you learned, or things that you're like continuing to work on from the hard parts in that other relationship?
Yeah, I know the topic of this podcast is forgiveness, and that's absolutely something that I still work on to this day. Yeah. Because for a lot of the time, for a long time after that relationship ended, I was just angry. I was just really. There was a lot of just pent-up anger in myself. Not necessarily at her, but just kind of at the situation.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Absolutely.
And after just everything I went through, I don't know. I was really, really not in a good mental place, and I was pissed off. And
yeah,
I think what I took away is that, it sounds cliche, but I mean, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I think it's true.
I mean, it's a saying for a reason, right?
It is. And because I went through that experience, I just think I'm so much stronger of a person now.
Yeah.
Because I've been through those kind of tough spots in life.
Yeah.
I've definitely, that doesn't mean that I've like made it in life. I mean, that I'll never run into no.
But I think you just saying that like has shown so much growth, and that you can even just say that out loud. Like, I mean, it's hard. It's hard, and it's taken me so long to like realize what really impacted me and what I've stuck with. Because often, like, sometimes you have this pent up anger or resentment subconsciously. Like, you don't realize.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of it is subconscious. Mm-hmm. You're not thinking about, but you may not be fully thinking about it, but it's there. Mm-hmm. It's very, very present.
Yeah, and it really weighs on you. And I work so hard on that because I find that when I have that, I mean, I'm sure this is common for everyone, but when we have this like pent up anger, it affects like our energy and affects the way we process things and our mental space, and then also our openness to being emotionally open with other people.
Having the pent up anger and emotions, everybody has a different way of coping with stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I was very lucky in the sense that once again, I played sports, so I would get to go out onto the lacrosse field and just take out my anger.
Okay.
And that helped me cope a lot, and that kind of helped me get my anger out. But kind of channel it into that. And whoever out there who's listening to this podcast, if you are going through something like that, if you have a lot of pent up anger, and I would recommend that you try to find a way to get it out. Whatever works for you, everyone's different. But if you have to go beat a punching bag, if you have to go just be by yourself, if you have to go on a hike, like whatever you have to do, just I really recommend that you try to have some kind of release and get it out.
It's not good to just like ignore it or just sit with it and not do anything about it, because that's like more dangerous, I think. We tend to blow things up in our minds because you only have your mind to talk to. So there's no one to give you a different perspective, talk you down, like help you cope with it and just move on. Like, so it'll just simmer and just like create a bigger issue. And that's totally happened to me. Like, I've totally just bottled it up and then exploded.
But and bringing it back to my situation, because a lot of my friends and my family weren't fans of her, I didn't really have someone to talk to like that.
Yeah.
And so that, I think caused me to internalize it a lot more, which probably didn't help matters. But like I said, now I can look back on it and it's much clearer to me now that that was going on. But
yeah, I forget that, like, with my relationship with my parents, we talk through everything. I really rely on them. I really rely on them for like emotional support. And I think that's made me be able to talk about what I'm feeling.
Yeah. And I will say one thing I did take away from the relationship also is that now my parents and I have both kind of grown from that. And we do talk stuff out a whole lot more now than we did. So we both definitely learned from this experience. So for that, I am grateful that it happened.
And they were there with you through it, even though I'm sure it wasn't great all the time at all. But that's great that you guys grew through that. I mean, I think that's the same with my parents and my family and my friends. We've all grown through it.
Right.
And I also find that there's so many more people that actually have gone through the exact same thing. I think our stories are rare in that it happened in high school and that it was so intense, but I've been able to help people through it and just like say, like, I totally know where you're coming from. I've been through the same thing, like, and kind of give like some guidance through it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say to someone in the same situation?
Number one, don't try to be Superman, because I'm going to be blunt, like, you're not super, like you cannot do it all by yourself. And I know that that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's a pill I wish I swallowed when I was going through it. But don't try to take it all on by yourself. That's number one. Number two, I would say try not to blame yourself for the other person's, struggles and experience. Obviously, you are there to try to be there for them and to help them and to do everything you can. But don't blame yourself because it isn't your fault.
Yeah.
It's not their mental illness is not your fault, and I think that if you start to blame yourself for that, you can go down a pretty bad spiral.
Oh, for sure.
I think a big thing is just stay positive, just as much as you can.
Yeah.
Just try to look forward towards the better days ahead. You have to go through stormy, rainy days in order to appreciate bright ones. So,
exactly.
Just try to keep that in mind.
I couldn't have said it better. I think it's really damaging to blame yourself and damaging to take it all on thinking that, you were Superman, we're not. And sometimes it's an organic thing with people dealing with mental illness, and you just can't be that person to help, and it is not your fault. And that, seeking help is absolutely okay, and that we need to start pushing therapy more. I haven't gone to therapy in years, but I just remember it was really valuable. It's good to have this neutral person who doesn't know your life, doesn't even know who you're talking about, and they can just have a professional opinion and give you solutions and help you talk it out, and it's really refreshing. I know that's just what helped me. If I would say something to someone in our position, then same everything you said, but also sometimes you're the one who has to make the hard decision to let them go. That was the hardest choice I've ever made in my life up to this point.
Right.
And because what's happening isn't their fault. And that's what's so confusing, because it's not like they're doing it on purpose. They're not doing anything.
It's the cards that they were dealt.
Yeah. And this is that kind of thing that people have to learn to live with and deal with and find coping mechanisms. And sometimes you can't be that person to wait with them and watch them develop and deal with it. If they're in a stagnant place, it's okay to love them and let them go and be like, I need to, we're not growing together, but I want the best for you, but I need to also move on and grow myself. And that is okay. Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you're saying that you're above them. It doesn't mean that you're, too good for them. It means nothing like that. It's just life is too short.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you have changed anything that you did then if you could redo it?
Yeah, I mean, I would have definitely tried to be more understanding of what my friends and my parents were telling me. And I would have just tried to hear them out a little bit more, because at that point I was just saying, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. They're just trying to break us up.
Easy to make excuses, yeah.
Of course, and of course I didn't want to listen to anybody. And of course, I'm 17. A lot of 17-year-olds don't like listening to people, but I felt a divide in my life between those people who care about me, and so I would try to, like I just said, try to hear them out.
I would maybe say the same thing, but I think we also need to give ourselves grace in that we were 17. Also that, this is all new territory. And it's really hard for people to hear that what in your reality is that that's wrong. And in my 17-year-old mind, I would have totally blocked it out again and again and again, which I did. Yeah. But I think for me, I wouldn't change anything. Yes, I wish that I did these things differently, because it would save myself a lot of heartache and time. But I think now I've learned to really listen to people and really ask opinions. And I mean, I trust my gut first, but also I'm really okay to being wrong, and that sometimes you can't really see what's in front of you because of the love goggles or because of just your own perspective.
And having those hard conversations with your support system, I mean, it's only going to help you. Just understand that everything is a learning experience, and try to really just try to grow and learn as much as you can. And everything may seem really dark and really crappy, but things will get better. You just got to stay strong.
Totally. Well, thank you, Nick, so much for taking the time to be on my podcast.
No, I really appreciate the opportunity. This is a really great podcast.
Oh, thank you.
I've been a huge fan since the beginning, so yeah.
Okay, bye. Well, that was so fun. Nick is just the best. And I think it's unique that we've both been through something similar and kind of learned how to grow from those experiences. I want to elaborate on some things we talked about, like the importance of forgiveness. I think a lot of times we think about forgiveness as something that happens that makes everything go back to the way it was before. Like forgiving means a clean slate and you're back to trusting each other and being vulnerable with them. I've done a great deal of forgiving, and I've learned a lot about how healing it can be. I view forgiveness as something that's more for me. It's not always really about the other person at all. When we're wronged or hurt, often we have anger and hatred and intrusive thoughts about the wounding experience. Using all that emotion and energy to resent or somehow punish the person in my head does not really hurt them. It's more exhausting for me. The person who expends more energy and emotions has the least power in the relationship. Forgiving someone for what they've done depowers the effect it had on you. We're able to let go of the exhausting mix of emotions and move on. Now, this does not mean that you forget how it made you feel. Depowering it doesn't mean it didn't happen. In the past, I've completely forgiven someone for the pain they caused me, but also refused to invite them back into my life again. I really don't believe that this process has to cause drama or more thought than just asking yourself, does this person build me up and make me better? If not, then I think the next step is pretty clear. You can forgive someone and also not feel obligated to be there to watch them grow. It's really liberating to know how to just forgive and release the anger, but it absolutely takes practice. This way we can actually heal and live in the moment and focus on what does build us up, not on what holds us back. Every experience has created the person we are today, and I think it's our job to decide how to grow from those experiences. And remember, people really only have power over you when you give it to them. Stay healthy.